Welcome to the If You Could See Me podcast. Thank you for joining the movement. I'm your host, Erin Mahone. I'm an author, storyteller, facilitator, and mental health professional. I like to talk about big things, ask difficult questions, and challenge the ways in which we perceive ourselves, one another, and what's possible in the world. On this podcast, I speak to thinkers, makers, feelers, and folks fighting for change. You'll experience entertaining, thought-provoking conversations with people from all walks of life. I believe that mental health is health, and it goes so far beyond conversations about illness, medications, and treatment. Our mental health is essential to living our best lives, and I want to live in a world in which we talk about emotional wellness as easily and frequently as talking about the common cold. We aren't there yet, but I believe we can be. When I set out to create this thing, I had no idea what I was doing. Just that I wanted to share my story and I hoped I wasn't alone. I've discovered that so many people need to find solidarity. They need to know they aren't alone. Well, I'm here to tell you, you are not alone. We can have these difficult conversations in the light of day. We can laugh, joke, and get serious about making change. I've tried to create multiple entry points within this movement, and I hope you will take some time to check out all of our resources and consider sharing your story on our website, ifyoucouldseeme.com. There you can submit your story, find mental health resources, submit ideas or resources yourself, read the stories of other brave warriors, find out about future live events, and invite me to speak or give a workshop in your area. If you're inspired by what we're doing, I hope you'll consider helping out by visiting our Patreon page, patreon.com/ifyoucouldseeme, purchasing my book, rating and reviewing this podcast on iTunes to help people find us, or just send me a message to let me know how this project is impacting you, ways we can improve, and future podcast or blog topics. This was only an idea until amazing people like you joined me in bringing it to life. Enjoy the show. Everyone get a drink? Oh my gosh, okay. Now the front row is going to get out of control. Wonderful. So before we get too much further into the evening, there was something that I wanted to do. And you know what? That is enough of that. I did. But see, when you write things on cards, there we go. Okay. So, I wanted to dedicate tonight to a few people. First, I want to dedicate this event to all those people that we love who have lost their battles with their mental illness through suicide or other means. In particular, I want to recognize Kate Spade, whose name we all know, and whenever that happens, we have this conversation for a few minutes, and everyone talks about how we should talk about it more and how sad it was and how hard it is, and then we go back to our corners. And so we are dedicated to continuing this conversation all the time. I want to also dedicate this evening to Marcus David Peters, who was the young man who was shot and killed a few weeks ago by the Richmond police, having a mental health crisis. We have to teach compassion everywhere, whether it's to the police, whether it's to our teachers, whether it's to our legislators and lawmakers. Compassion has to be number one. We have to teach people to ask first, what is this person experiencing? What is the pain that is causing this action? We cannot automatically first assume that they are a bad person who is acting in a way that is threatening because they want to be threatening. I would also like to dedicate this evening to David Ragland and Charles Rogers.
I want to recognize all of those people who are not yet ready to tell their stories. We hold space for you, and whenever you're ready, we'll be here. Our next speaker, presenter, is a passionate advocate and fighter for more inclusive communities for all people. Please welcome Ms. Cristina Ramirez.
So I'll start my story because I've kind of changed it a few times, but I think it makes sense with today. I called my parents today on Skype. We have to use Skype because it's free, and they're in Spain right now. And I had mentioned to them that I was coming here tonight and what I was going to do. And my mother didn't say anything, which kind of disappointing because this is a conversation I've wanted to have with her for many years, and when we do get around to talking about family issues, there's kind of a shutdown. My dad, on the other hand, said, well, that's really good what you're doing. I'm glad that you're kind of adding a little piece in the way you can, because in our communities, we don't talk about these things. And our community is referring to the Latino community. So that's kind of how today started off, just sort of like, And it's on my mind because on Sunday morning, I will arrive in Madrid, and they will pick me up, and I will go to my mom's house, a house that has a lot of history, and where a lot of these issues came from. My mom's from Spain, like I mentioned. My dad's Mexican-American, so I kind of got a weird double whammy of Latino-ness. Yeah, grew up with two different dialects at home of Spanish, even though I sound more like my mom. And just a lot of clouds hanging over on my mother's side of the family because about 10 years ago, and we used to spend the summers with my grandparents in Spain, and so we were very close to my grandmother. And when my grandmother was going through cancer for the second time, what she kept repeating over and over again to us was, the worst mistake I ever did was being married to that man. And that man was my grandfather. She had been married to him for 50-something years, and she waited until she was dying of cancer to say, the worst mistake of my life was marrying that man. And that's, some heavy stuff, because it's like, there were 50 years there. There was my mother who grew up in that home. There was my sister and I who grew up in that home. And we saw a lot. We heard a lot. We heard a lot of stories that you kind of whispered, that, stories that you heard about, like, oh, yeah, he did this, or he hit your mom so hard once when she was little that she rolled under a table. Stories like that they stay with you, and you just think, well, if that was the case, why didn't you do anything? Why did you stay? And her answer to me was, I couldn't. We're Catholic. I had to stay married. And she reminded me, and this was during Franco's time, it was like, Taliban Catholicism. You kind of had to, that was the state religion. And how could I have left your mother without a father? And how would that have looked in society? So when my mother inherited the house, she had to keep the facade because it's a historic home, but she completely gutted the inside. And she redid the entire house. It's an awesome house now. And she said, well, this is how I'm going to clean it. This is how I'm going to exercise it. This is how we can all come back and live here. Yeah, the house looks really nice, but that still is kind of in the background. It's never gone away because it's affected so many generations. Just not being able to talk about these things. My father, I saw a lot of anxiety and I think depression in him from being the first Mexican-American in South Texas to really achieve what he did achieve. And I just kind of grew up feeling in so many ways, wow, he's fighting so hard to get that seat at the table as a professor. He's made so many changes, but he's still having to prove himself. He's still having to show that he's not stupid or that he's less than or that, because he has dark skin, that somehow that he's inferior. And I feel like Erin was very kind words when she introduced me, and I feel that that's a mantle I've taken on, of being a kind of a social justice warrior for a Latino community here in Central Virginia that I'm not really related to. The community here is mostly Central American. But I think I can do a lot for this community because I don't have a, quote, accent, and because I have light skin privilege. And so I can step up and advocate for the community here. If you could see me, the theme of tonight is that I have a lot of anxiety, and I suffer from depression. And I get very nervous when I feel like, okay, I need to say something at this moment. I need to step up because there's no one in this place that's going to step up. There's no one that is going to come and say that is wrong. What you just said was really racist, or what you just did was really exclusionary. And so I feel that kind of responsibility to do that. But with that responsibility also comes, well, shit, now I'm going to get fired, or I'm going to get punished in some way, or I'm going to be labeled a troublemaker, which has happened in a number of organizations. But that's okay, because one of the things that I'm working on, and as I get older, is, yes, I have this incredible anxiety over making these changes and over trying to move the needle in difficult conversations, but I don't care. Really, if they want to mess with me, it's probably not going to work so well because I get more techniques over time. I get more tools on how to push back. So it's a work in progress, dealing with, in the different spheres of my life. The thing that I think is the hardest is that I'm able to really do this in the community, but when I go home and I consider Segovia home on Sunday, that's going into a house that has a lot of ghosts, to speak, to your quote earlier. And we're not going to talk about it. But maybe I can help other people. Maybe I can help other people kind of voice their ghosts, and that will help me kind of move through mine. So I'm learning how to make those cracks for other people, even if in my family some of those issues are still a little taboo. And I think my sister and I have kind of been able to move forward and just kind of create new lives in this country in which we navigate the education piece in our communities, but we still have kind of that history with us, and I think that's okay. I do. I think it's okay to kind of navigate all those different spheres, and I don't know. I don't know what else to say other than it's tough, but someone has to be a voice in the community. And it's okay if I'm going to be really nervous and I might have to curse a little bit, but yeah. But I'm still going to do it. I'm not going to stop.
Thank you, Christina. Oh, that's loud. So we have two more left. Our next presenter is a peer recovery specialist, a coach, a facilitator, a mental health advocate, a woman of faith, a gentle and loving spirit. Please welcome Ms. Jamie Rivas.
I'm scared for y'all because I had tequila during the intermission. Yeah, I did, because, that's part of my recovery journey. So don't judge me, Yeah, just, So Erin doesn't know, but tonight was a huge test for me because this is as much as I've shared my story, this is the first time where I really feel like I'm sharing for myself. Most of the time it's for other people, and I'm asking, what does the room need to hear? But I really had to ask myself, what is it that I need to share about me? I am a chronic mask wearer. Chronic. I mean, if that was a disease, I have it full-fledged, and I need the antidote. Um, and I struggled with who I was going to invite tonight because some of the main people that I wanted to invite are the reason why I wear that mask. And I didn't want them to steal tonight from you. I didn't. I didn't want this night stolen. I wanted to talk about my depression and what it's like to really live with this disease. It's not a sin. It's not a demon. It's a disease. Depression, I'm sure most of you all have seen Men in Black. And y'all remember when the aliens would take over the body of the human? That's what depression is like really. Depression comes in and it takes over your life. All the things that you are interested in and all the things that you would naturally be motivated to do and all the people that you love, that you want to hang out with, it takes over, and none of that stuff is fun. And you know that it's not you. You know it's not your normal self, and you're fighting against depression. That's the reality. I feel like Men in Black, the alien has come in, taken over my body, and I'm not myself. Last night, I cried myself to sleep. The day before that, I cried mostly all day. The day before that, I cried mostly all day. Because right now, I'm going through depression episodes. And that's real. I've had thoughts of suicide. And that's real. And I can't help somebody. I can't even help myself if I'm not telling the truth about what's going on with me day to day. The blessing is, though, because I am in recovery and I'm more resilient than I used to be, I'm not going to die, and I know I'm going to be okay. So when people ask me, are you okay? Yes, I am okay, because I'm surrounded by sisters and friends that get it. When I was first diagnosed with depression in 2007, I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. I was not around people that got it. I was told I needed to go to church more, that would solve my problem. That would help me with an issue that had been going on, and I didn't understand what was wrong with me. I felt like I was losing my mind. Something's wrong with me because the person that I once was is not here anymore, and I would do anything to get her back. And finally, I heard somebody talking about symptoms that sounded like mine, and they said, you need to go to a therapist. Now, if y'all know anything about, and I'm speaking because I know it's across cultures, but in the Black community, we don't go to therapy, we go to church. I mean, that's the truth. We don't go to therapy, we go to church. And so, but I did. I probably was the first person that I know of, especially on my mom's side of the family, to go to therapy for their issues. See, we like to cope with alcohol and drugs and sex and spending too much money and whatever else we can cope with, and then call people crazy for going to therapy. You know, that's what we do. But I did not want that to be my story because I saw what it was doing to my life at that time, and I also saw what it had done to my family. I also saw what living in denial of having these issues were like. So I decided, no matter how long it took, I was going to get help. I didn't know what that was going to look like. And even after 2007, I still was a broken, hot mess. And I was hospitalized in 2012 for depression, anxiety, and what I found out, I also had borderline personality disorder. Nothing could prepare me for that but God. But in 2013 was where I found a community of peers that said, I'm not alone, I'm not by myself, and that I can recover, and that I don't have to be my diagnosis. And that recovery doesn't mean that I'm not going to have days where I cry myself to sleep at night. Doesn't mean that I'm going to be 100% perfect. It means that it's going to be a roller coaster ride. And I'm going to lose interest in the things that matter. And I'm going to have to push Cece. My sister always tells me to push. I thank God for her, because I didn't come from a family of pushers. And so I'm glad to have that reminder that I need to push, because there are people that need to hear that depression is like Men in Black, and that anxiety is screwed up, and that borderline personality means that I'm going to have catastrophic thoughts about everything being worse than it really is, and that's okay. That's my truth. That's what I live with every day. No matter how much makeup I put on, no matter how snatched back my hair is, no matter how perfect my shoes are, I live, and sometimes I crumble and I fall apart, and that's okay. We all are survivors of something, and the only way to get to thriving is to tell the truth. So, that's my story that I want to share tonight. And I thank you for letting me have that. Thank you.
I'm super lucky, you guys. I'm just the super luckiest girl in the whole world. You need to stop. Oh, it's both of you. Okay. We have one more amazing lady. This lady I have known for how long? Yeah, long time. Long time. And over the last 5 months, I have found out more about her than I ever knew, and I have found out how strong she is and how supportive and how powerful. A decade ago, this amazing lady took control of her health and has been helping people to get where she is through her amazing business as a trainer and a coach and a leader of people. Please welcome our final storyteller for the evening, Miss Andrea Robinson.
Novel, don't be nervous. I appreciate being last because, sometimes last is good, first is good, but I had to learn how to cry. So if you see tears, that's part of my recovery. You see, you learn how to cry when you're a child. But in order to be a child, you have to have a childhood. But sometimes your childhood is snatched from you. As a child, I hated funerals. We grew up in a community of older people, and there's always someone dying. You got to go to church, and you show up. So you put your slip on. I was rebelling tonight. I don't have on pantyhose, sister. Where we grew up, you put on your pantyhose, you put on your slip. I've even had my aunt park the car, go back in the house, put some makeup on, girl, before you can go. So there's always been an air of perfection in our community, Andrea's community. But I hated funerals when I was a child. But as I got older and I felt like, you got to show up and you have to support people who've passed away, I realized that, I can get through a funeral. I can do this. So I'm just sitting in my living room, and I hear a phone call, and the phone rings, and I answer, and it's this really good-looking guy from high school. this will make sense because I was really fat in high school. This guy looked like Prince. And I was so excited. Ooh, he's interested in me. And he said, my best friend just died. Are you going to the funeral? I said, I'm not sure. Were we close in school? And he said, yeah, Kenneth. And I stopped. He said, is that your church? I know you're going, right? Yeah, if it's at Poplar Mountain, I guess I'm going. So that morning, as I'm getting dressed and trying to decide what to wear, couldn't do what I did today. I said, I can't go without my pantyhose today because my legs would feel as bare as my soul is going to feel in this funeral. Once again, I was going to put on that smile to mask my shame and my pain, feeling powerless and trying to figure out how to take control. People always said, I love your voice, Andrea. Yeah, because I didn't have a voice for 25 years. I was going to show up and do exactly what I was supposed to do because that's what we do. You know, Southern Baptists, show up, do what you're supposed to do. So I'm going to show up at the funeral of a person who made my childhood a living hell, and I could tell no one. So we're at the funeral, and his best friend's there, and he looks really good. He looks like Prince. Unfortunately, by this time, I'm 5'6", and he's a little bit too short. So I'm not really feeling this energy, but I'm going to be here and support you. I'm struggling trying to comfort him, and he's crying. And the choir is singing Amazing Grace, and my heart is like, hallelujah. Finally, you're dead. Am I heartless? But you know, when you were abused, when your body was just becoming a woman, it's hard to find some sympathy. I can still hear his words. He said, I'm going to keep touching you and feeling you until you pay me. What kind of monster is that? Are you trying to get rich or you're trying to get laid? Which one is it? So I save money every day. My mom never knew. My brother never knew. Save money every day to pay this person not to touch me. Finally, I said, I'm not going to do it. I was hungry. Save my lunch money. We got $1 a day. Andrew knows. So I told my teacher, and she said, Andrea, you just bloomed too early. You need to be careful around boys now. Don't wear your low-cut blouses and don't wear your tight clothes and just get you a good bra. To this day, I wear a good bra. Then she gave me a long lecture about being a lady. Till this day, I'm a lady. And now, you know, when I hear rape victims speak those words about, were her clothes too tight? Was her blouse too low? It sounds really familiar, and I really hated Mrs. Freeman after that. And I'm going to use her whole name because she's dead. The long, hot summer after that, he didn't have to account for his actions. And so before we got into the 8th grade, he pushed his way into my mother's house. Now, we live in a trailer. The door was kind of easy to push in. And he forced me to have oral sex when I barely knew what sex was. All the while, my friends, his friends, my cousins, my brother, playing on their bikes with no clue. I fought him halfway off me through, kicked him out. He ran down the street and thought he was going to jump on his bike. I said, I'm going to tell my aunt. And I walked down to my aunt's house and I told her, and she got in her car and she called him and she said, I know what you did. I was excited. She looked at me. I said, yes. I'd never loved my Aunt Dorothy so much in that moment. Finally, somebody believed me and stood up for me. But later, they talked with his mom and they decided, we're not going to ruin his life, so we're not going to say anything about it. We're going to let it go. You know what? Nobody thought about my life. And I heard about this years later. So I was the pariah of high school. Most of my friends knew it, and they couldn't figure out why. Ridiculed, called names, and shamed, all because of his lies. Because, you know, if he really tried to attack you, Andrea, wouldn't he be in trouble? Oh, no, you're just a slut. Because we heard what happened. So I put on my mask, and I became the fat, funny girl. I began to do poorly in school, and I don't even self-esteem. I don't know if I had any left. I became overly sexual for my age and completely unloved, playing into that false image already created for me. All this is in my head while I'm sitting in this damn funeral. I'm listening to the howl of his nieces, and they're all crying like someone great just passed away. And I can hear the scene from The Wizard of Oz, the Wicked Witch is dead. That's all I'm hearing. And I keep asking myself, what did I do wrong and how had I allowed this to get this far? I'm at this funeral and I'm still blaming myself. You know your head is really screwed up when your cousin raped you at the age of 8 by using the words, you may as well let me have it because pretty soon you're going to be too fat and no one's going to want you. Imagine that from your 8th grade child. Oh yeah, this cousin tried to ask for forgiveness 41 years later. But I can't give you absolution for your sins. I'm not there yet. I'm still in recovery. That's between him and his God. I'm still thinking, when is this stupid funeral going to be over? And finally the preacher said, amen. I'm like, hallelujah. Oh, hell. Now I got to carry out his flowers because his classmates are his flower girls. And I thought, I'm going to see if I can sneak one. And every day I'm going to look at it to make sure I know he's really dead. I left the funeral, and I'm feeling really raw, and I can't go home. I can't talk to my mom. At this point, she's having memory issues. She don't even remember. I've told this story 3 times. Every time it's different. I get in my car, and I'm going to ride to my cousin's house, and I'm heading down the street, and I walked in, and I just said, I need to talk. And we went down in the basement, and his name is Ben, and Ben is sometimes my uncle, and sometimes he's my cousin, but he's always my friend. He's always my friend. And I said to him, I just went to the funeral of a person who abused me physically, verbally, and sexually and made my childhood a living hell. As I replayed the story to him, he said the most powerful words to me I've ever heard in my life. If I had been around, he would have been dead a long time ago. This was my validation. I'm not wrong. I don't need to be ashamed. I don't need to be shunned. And I wasn't deserving of this unwanted attention. My blouses weren't too low. I wasn't asking for any of this. My clothes aren't too tight. I'm sorry I bloomed too early. I was simply being me. And I realized today that me is good enough. And I'm not sorry that my truth might make some of you uncomfortable. I am free. But my journey for healthy love still continues. Thank you.
So let's all take a deep breath. We just did a thing together. We have a couple more things that we're going to do together before we leave here. First, I want to say some thank yous. Alanis, can you go to the next slide? I'm taking this out. Sure, that one. We have to thank all of these amazing people. Virginia Repertory Theater, Dean Whitbeck, Nathaniel Shaw, Carrie Lynch, Alanis France, Weinstein JCC, Andrea Robinson, Keith Mahone, Emily Russo, Bonnie Fenton, Jason Hawk, and the one person that I can't believe that I forgot to put on there, Marcy Horowitz. Without these people, without their financial contributions, without the amazing contribution of the space by Virginia Repertory Theater, without Carrie, without Alanis, without my amazing husband who you all met in the front this evening, without Dean, without Marcy, without everyone, without these incredible ladies, this would not have happened. It is really important that you all know how much you mean to me and how essential you are to the process. Alanis, go back one. Go back one. There you go. This is the poor Alanis is behind the curtain. Let's give her a round of applause. She's the Wizardess of Oz this evening. So she said thank you. This quote is, I'm really mad that I didn't write it myself, but it's everything that fuels this process. You either walk inside your story and own it, or you stand outside your story and hustle for your worthiness. None of us deserves to hustle for our worthiness. By virtue of being alive on this earth, you are worthy of love and respect, and your story is important. We're going to close with one song, and then after the song is over, we're going to invite everyone up here so that you can ask them questions if you are so inclined. This song is my favorite song to end a show with, and you all know it because it is bored into our brain. It is the ultimate symbol of hope to me. No matter what bad happens in our lives, no matter what challenges we face, there is always the wonder of nature and the beauty of the people that we have in our lives and the hope of the next generations. And please join me in singing What a Wonderful World. I see trees of green and red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Y'all come up here. Come on. You don't have to sing. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright, blessed day and the warm, sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry and oh, watch them grow. They'll know much more than I ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yeah, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh, yeah. What is that? Thank you. What is this? Oh, you told me you were going to rip the microphone out of my hand.
We were, but then you got to singing a Wonderful World shit, and we was like, this is not the time, this is not the time, this is not the time. This is not the time, no. So the beautiful thing about you saying the wonderful world, right? We are women of faith, but of all different faith. And we all sat in a room, and we cried, and we boo-hooed, and some of us told our stories for the very first time. And it was the most empowering thing, powerful thing to do, to stand in a room with women of different color and of different faith and share a space. And for someone to be that creative to create this space is a powerful thing. And you just never know who God, whoever, Allah, whatever you call that positive, beautiful energy, you just never know who God is going to put in your space to catapult you to another space. And I just want to thank you for allowing us the space. You don't know how much you breathed life back into our lives. We love you. It is a wonderful world, though.